So here's another area where I wander off the reservation compared to what my buddies and a lot of other people do as far as making jig tables, and that is I use white melamine. Now, I posted videos a while back on some other jigs that I made, some rib jigs, and I made a jig table for a 1929 Traveler 4000 fuselage, and I used white melamine. I love this stuff. And you know, I've seen so many different materials used for jig tables, and I've seen so many different styles of jig tables. I've seen plywood used, I've seen OSB, I've seen really fine particle board, I've seen doors joined together. A guy went to the hardware store and bought a bunch of doors and joined them end to end. Made a great flat table. And then another guy I know wanted to make a few airplanes and thought maybe his buddies would want some fuselages too. So he made it out of steel. You know, it was square box tubing and then plated it with steel. It had steel sheet as a floor to it. So he can do almost anything. A really good friend of mine actually took shipping pallets and joined the pallets edge to edge and laid out his 1929 Traveler 4000 fuselage on it. And that airplane eventually became a grand champion. All right, so to all those people, all of you out there, anybody watching that have ever made a jig table and actually created a fuselage off of it, man, good on you. You know, good job. You know, it's a big job, and not a lot of people get all the way through it. So good job. So I listed all of those materials in many different ways of making jig tables, just to show you how many options there are. So again, what do I use? I use white melamine, and you know I can hear it now. I got my chops busted pretty good on a forum a while back when I started talking about using white melamine, and but I'll tell you. You know, a lot of people will say, you know, wow, white melamine, you can't use that. You know, especially something you're going to weld on. You know, how are you going to keep it from burning up and all that? Well, you know what? I have answers to all those questions, and I'll show you, you know, in the follow-on videos. But you know, I'll tell you why I like white melamine. The color that they use on these melamine boards is just a brilliant white. Okay, so anything that you put on there is going to be is really going to contrast, and that, and the other thing is that the black they use for a lot of markers is a really deep black. It's almost a coal black, and so you take that coal black and you put it on the white melamine, and it just really contrasts. And so the other thing is, I don't know about you, but I've mentioned this before, the older I get, just doesn't seem to be as much light anymore. You know what I mean? So a brilliant white background and the coal black that I use on the markers that you can get, that I use for laying stuff out, really works well. Plus, here's your tip of the day, okay? What kind of markers do I use? You know, usually people use Sharpies or Marks-a-Lots or whatever else. I use dry erase markers, okay? They work really well. And here's your second tip of the day. Have you ever looked at someone's jig table or anything they've laid out to, you know, to hold things in position while they're building stuff, and you look at it and there's always one or two lines that kind of go off and then stop, and then there's a squiggly line through it, right? And then there's another one that goes beside it that's at a different angle, which is actually the correct one. So what happened there? Well, they made a mistake. You know, they didn't line it up, do it at the right angle, or it didn't end up at the right place or whatever. Well, because they used permanent markers, You know, and the other thing is a lot of people use plywood. Plywood is a very absorbent material. It wouldn't matter if you're using dry erase markers, marks, lots, Sharpies, watercolors, whatever. It's going to absorb it, and all the acetone or alcohol in the world is going to take it off. But if you use white melamine boards and dry erase markers, you can make all the mistakes you want. You can lay anything out in any kind of color you want. You can make whatever changes you want, and you can come back and it just comes right off. Okay, easy deal. So, you know, some guys still use Sharpies even on the dry erase boards, and you know, that's fine. If you're getting the job done, anything you use works. But in order to take the Sharpie marks off, you have to use like an acetone or something like that, some kind of solvent. And you know, I'm hesitant to use that kind of material and let it off gas in an area where I'm going to come back and be doing welding. All right, so I'm pretty sure that the Windex isn't going to hurt me very much. So, so what do I use? I use white melamine. Easy to lay out your geometry, easy to make corrections on, very smooth, consistent line. It's available at most, or probably all home improvement centers, and I think it works really well. Thank you for watching. The other thing is, a lot of people use plywood. Plywood is like a sponge for markers. It wouldn't matter if it's dry erase,